Hey, Shalom, Markin. This is Rakam Makapash from GMS London, giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bashem Chadash. Want to give double honors unto the elders, the apostles of GMS, and Shalom out there to the hopeful elect, pushing his truth in all sincerity. Back again with another video. And I'm going to entitle this one, These Devils Don't Believe in the Bible. All right. And this comes from this article that I've got up here, right? And the title of this article is from Associated Press, right? Gulf allies privately make the case to Trump to keep fighting until Iran is decisively defeated. All right. Now, what I want to get into has got nothing really to do with the title of the thing, but there's something that appeared in this article that I found kind of interesting. All right. And it's here, right? This paragraph here, right? And this is the case that, these devils, these Edomites are waging war against, these Iranians, the Iranian people, right? Because they're just so unhinged, right? It's not this one. Boop, my bad. It's this one, this paragraph, all right? Because they believe the Iranian people to be so unhinged, right? And then when you read this paragraph here, it's like, have these guys not read the Bible before? And the truth is they don't understand the scriptures, but it's like the Bible has apocalyptic value in it in terms of destruction, right? So let me just read it, and I'll get into the precepts and all that kind of stuff, right? But so this is what they accuse them of being, the Iranians, right? Why they must be stopped, right? Because they're crazy, right? I think Marco Rubio said this, right? He said they are religious zealots who can never be allowed to possess a nuclear weapon, right? And for time they've been saying that's not their plan. They just want nuclear power, right? They've never said they've been going after a weapon, but whatever. Right? So they should be never allowed to possess a nuclear weapon because, so this is the reason, because they have an apocalyptic vision of the future. But hold on, so what is the Bible? Right? So this is the Bible, the book of Revelation, not only the book of Revelation, but there's tons of prophecies in the scriptures that speak about the end of the nations, basically, how the Lord is going to destroy them. So what are they talking about? You're meant to have that same apocalyptic vision of the future. You're supposed to understand that, yeah, this is going to come to an end at some point. But they don't. They don't ever preach that. They preach America's forever, man. Right? They don't, because that's what they mean by the word apocalyptic. Even though it's poorly used, right? It's poorly used, man, in terms of destruction. Really, it just means the revealing, realistically. But the book of Revelation goes into the return of Yahweh Shai and how he's going to come back and tear down the nations, basically. Right? But that's in the Bible. Right? And so you're meant to have this understanding that, the end of the world, this apocalyptic future exists. Right? But, you're accusing that's why they can't have a nuclear weapon because they have apocalyptic vision of the future. One that doesn't envision America being around forever. Which the scriptures in the Bible teaches us that Babylon the Great has to be destroyed. Right? So, and America is Babylon the Great. So, I don't know what this clown's talking about, right? But anyways, Rubio said of Iran in an appearance on ABC's Good Morning America. And all of their neighbors know that, by the way, which is why all of their neighbors have been supportive of the efforts we're conducting, right? So again, I'm just doing this video based on this whole idea is that, the Bible isn't an apocalyptic book. If you want to look at it that way, it talks about the Babylon the Great being destroyed. The great nation, the golden city, that ruler over all the nations. Okay, which is obviously America, right? And its destruction. The Bible teaches about that. So what the hell is this clown saying? These guys are meant to be Christians. They're meant to know or understand what's in the scriptures. But because it's America first, like, they don't care about the scriptures. They don't care. They don't believe in it. All they care about is America. Right, and Esau's rulership. That's what they really care about, and they'll use whatever book they need to use or say whatever they need to say to make it seem like, America is just and it's righteous, and it's, to justify all its actions, whether good or bad, right? But the fact is, the Bible speaks about, this apocalyptic future that you're talking about. Okay, but Trump is meant to be a hardened Christian, supposedly, right? Can't name any of the books, any verses or any chapters or nothing, right? But he's meant to be a Christian, right? That you Christian supporters supported him, gave him your vote because he represented, bringing the Bible, making the Bible great again. But where is all of that? Where is all of that? Right. So that's what I really wanted to get from the article, right? And so now I just want to get into the precepts, right? And let me open up with Psalms 50, verse 16 here. It says, "But unto the wicked God saith, What hast thou to do to declare my statutes, or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth?" Right? So you stood, so-called, put the Bible up there and stood behind it as if, you back it, you believe it, and you want to incorporate the things from the scriptures into, your nation, right? You're meant to be a country founded upon Christianity, right? But you don't but what's that got to do with you? You don't actually apply any of it. You don't believe in the scriptures. You don't teach, the scriptures correctly, right? You don't do any of these things. You don't apply the law properly. So why bother? It's just because you want the image of being righteous, because the scriptures is a righteous book. The Bible, the Holy Bible, is a righteous book. Right? That's the only reason why you use that book. Right? Not because you respect it, because you don't respect it. Right? So this is what the Lord's saying here. So seeing thou hatest instruction, you Edomites hate instruction. Right? You never want to do what's right. Right? And casteth my words behind thee. Okay? Right? So yeah. You don't have no respect for the Bible, right? Like I say, you don't really believe in it. But you like to pose. Right? So 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 14. Let me read from verse 13, right? So for such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Yahushua, right? So you, man, you Edomites, you so-called white people, right? Beginning with the so-called white person in America, you evangelists and whatever, right? You pose yourself to be God's people, God's nation, with God's army, and all these different types of things, right? You're the pinnacle of the Christians, right? But you're all a bunch of liars and thieves, right? Doing nothing but deceitful works, right? But you're claiming to be, God's man, and it's a lie, right? It says, for such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Yahushua. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Okay, because you want the appearing of being righteous, right? But really, you're just Satan, right? And that's why these Iranians are doing all their fucking memes right now, making you look dumb, because it's true. All these, it's not as stupid as these memes are. Well, there's a lot of truth in them. There's a lot of truth in them, man. That's why they call you the great Satan, right? Verse 15 said, "Therefore it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works," right? So again, all of it's posturing, all of it's posing, right? But they're not what they appear, right? It's all lies. And you can tell it's all lies because, like I said, they don't uphold anything, right? Because it was a bit of a stupid statement to make, that these men are apocalyptic. They believe in an apocalyptic future. Well, as a Christian, you're meant to believe in an apocalyptic future also, right? Because it's in the scriptures. All right, but it just shows these people don't know fucking nothing. All right. Let me get Revelation 9 and 10, and I'm just going to read this verse. I'm going to come back to Revelation 19 later, right? But I just want verse 10 for now. And it says, and I fell at his feet to worship him, and he said unto me, See thou do it not, for I am thy fellow servant, and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Yahushua. Worship the Most High, for the testimony of Yahushua is the spirit of prophecy, right? So we deal with the prophecies. And in the scriptures, there's a load of prophecies, right, that speak about the end times, right? The end times is not is not his darkness and not light. It's not a pretty time, right? It's not the Bible doesn't end in, well, it does end in a forever kingdom. This just happens to not be it, right? But there's a kingdom that has to be destroyed first, right? Which is Babylon the Great, before the kingdom of heaven can be established, right? And we're not there. We're not in the kingdom of heaven. America is not the kingdom of heaven, bro. Just look at it. Just look at it. Look what's going on the planet. This is not the kingdom of heaven. That should be obvious for all to see, right? There's the kingdom that currently exists must be destroyed, right, for the kingdom of heaven to be established. That's prophecy, right? Which every Christian should know that. Every Christian should know that, right? But except for Marco Rubio, apparently, right? So that apocalyptic view that he's talking about exists in the scriptures. There has to be a destruction, right? Babylon the Great has to be destroyed. Now, they might say, well, we're not Babylon the Great, but somebody has to be Babylon the Great, right? And it's not Iran, and it's not Iraq. It's not none of these places, because they don't have a foothold in the world like they're supposed to if you're Babylon the Great, right? You're meant to be above all nations and oppressing people and doing all kind of craziness, right? You're meant to be rich beyond compare, militarily strong, doing all kind of trades with everybody in the earth, all this sort of stuff, right? That's nobody else really but you, right? So it can't be nobody else. So Babylon the Great has to be destroyed, right? So therefore, the idea that Iran thinks or believes that you're the great Satan is completely accurate. and that you deserve to be destroyed, and Israel too, right? That's completely accurate, right? There's nothing, but that doesn't what we're saying, or what I'm saying right now, isn't coming from their book or their text or whatever. That's coming from the scriptures, from the Bible, which you're supposed to be, behind and believing and supporting or whatever, right? So what's wrong here? You just don't want to admit or can't admit that America, you the American, you the Edomites are the bad guys, right? That the Lord wants to destroy, But I'm going to come back to Revelation 19 later, right? So let me go to Revelation 16 and verse 13, right? And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. For they are the spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world, to gather them to the battle of that great day of the God Almighty, right? So there's a great battle that's supposed to that take place in the earth, right? What we know is World War III, and America and Israel, they play the massive parts in making that happen. That is apocalyptic, and Marco Rubio, America, they're helping to fulfill that prophecy. So all we're going to do is encourage them, because that's a good thing, right? Because it means that this place is going to be destroyed. Okay. It says, behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garment, and lest he walk naked and they see his shame. Right, verse 16, and he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon, okay, which means mountain of troops, right, i.e. World War III, right? But these mountain of troops, they're gonna be fighting in the Middle East, in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, okay, which is where you are right now. The American army or whatever, the Americans are there right now causing problems down there in the Middle East, right, with Israel and also Iran, and you've got these other groups that are there currently, right? But the Lord is going to bring all these nations together to destroy themselves. Okay, this is part of the end time prophecies. All right, and again, you should know this, right? Revelation 11 verse 14 says, the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly, right? The woes represents destruction, 3 great destructions, right? And the second has already passed, right? We've had World War One, World War Two, the Great Wars, right? We had, massive death in those times, right? But the third one is coming, right? And the third one's going to be off the chain, because technology's advanced, man, like rapidly since then, greatly since then, right? So we got all kinds of mad weapons now, and not without even mentioning the nuclear capabilities of these nations now, right? It's devastating, terrifying, right? And so the Lord is going to set these guys up, set these nations up to come down and fight against each other in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. Right? That is part of entire prophecy. Right? Apocalyptic, as he might call it. Right? This is Joel chapter 3 and verse 2. Right? I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the Valley of Jehoshaphat and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. Right? Jumping down to verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, right? And wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up, right? So the nations are meant to be at war, okay, which they are, okay? They've been amassing, Iran's been amassing, their arsenal, right? Their capability to fight war, right? As well as other nations, far and wide, right? They've all been investing more in their, military capabilities, right? Because the Most High has put the spirit upon them to do this, right? And they're gonna, like I said, prepare war, and they're gonna bring them down into the Valley of Jehoshaphat, right? As we're gonna read on. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, "I am strong," right? Because they're gonna be allied with other nations that are gonna make them stronger, right? They're gonna share, technology and tactics and whatever, right? To bolster them. All right, and they're going to come down and fight, on the different sides of the battle. Okay, whether it be with America and Israel or with Russia, and Iran, China, and so on. Right. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Tiva calls thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord Yahweh. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. Okay, i.e., the battle of Armageddon. Armageddon, I'm a God one. Okay, mount on the troops. Right, because everybody's gonna be dragged down into the Middle East, right? Which is what's happening, right? Is what's about to happen, right? For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about, right? So this is all part of it. The part of end times prophecy is what he would call an apocalyptic view of the future. It don't end nice for the nations. Hell no. The Lord is stirring up war. Right, and these men are fully complicit and quite happily complicit, man. They men are like dropping bombs on people, right? So they're not bothered about it right now, right? But when the Lord amps up the heat, you're gonna find yourself in a very precarious situation, right? And again, this is all going to lead to America's destruction in the end, right? So that is the future. Whether you think it's apocalyptic or not, for us, like, hey, it's a good thing. It ain't bothering us because, hey, they're all going to set up his kingdom and you even are going to go into slavery. So for us, that's good. We're cool with that, But for people, in power right now in this kingdom, yeah, it's, probably be a bit distressing, probably be a bit distressing for you guys. But you'll get over it, just like, you told us to get over being in slavery and that we had to get over it. You'll get over it too, innit? So it's all good, all right? It says, put ye in, verse 13, put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, get you down, for the press is full, the fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. All right. So this is what the Lord is preparing. He's preparing a great war, right? Where the Lord is going to mutually destroy all the world's armies. Okay. And specifically, leading to America's destruction, right? But this is Obadiah chapter 1, verse 1. It says, the vision of Obadiah, thus saith the Lord God Yahweh concerning Edom, okay, which are you Edomites, right? Which are you so-called white people, okay, beginning with America, because America is, the focal point of these prophecies, right? But, all Esau is going to get caught up in it at some point, right? So we have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. Right? So if you're like, you call yourself a Christian, that you've read the Bible, then you should know that, the end ends in war. Right? And destruction. Right? You should kind of know that, right? And yes, the peace comes afterwards in terms of the kingdom of heaven. Obviously, you got that misconstrued with, the Yahweh Shai coming, or you call Jesus Christ, right? It's coming for everybody to save everybody, right? That's not what's going to happen. But before the kingdom of heaven is established, a war has to take place and conclude first, right? And that's not happened yet. So that is part of the future that we currently can perceive, right? So again, what the Iranians think should be no different to what the Christians think, really, in terms of like an apocalyptic future. Marco Rubio is talking like that doesn't insist in their Bible. Like I said, they like to call themselves Christians, right? But it's like they're talking like it doesn't exist, right? It says, behold, I made thee small among the heathen, thou art greatly despised, and that's why no one likes America, man. Especially now Trump's been in power, and he's just acting like an asshole all the damn time. No one likes them. Even though talking about the Arab nations, they're supporting Trump to do whatever. They don't really fucking like you, man. They don't fucking like you, man. They just make money, bro, and that's what they really care about. The pride of thy heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Though that thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy heart the nest among the stars, hence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord. All right. So I'm going to read from this for the time being, right? So, yeah. So I'm going to go back into Revelation 19, and I'm going to close it out in this, right? So this is what Yahushua is coming back to do, right? And it says in verse 11, and I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war. Right? This is Yahushua. When he comes, he's gonna come and wage war against the inhabitants of the earth, the nations, right? But he's gonna do it in truth and in righteousness, right? Which is what's really lacking in the world right now, right? All these wars is not righteous. It's not based on truth. You're being lied to, and given excuses or lies basically to wage war and do what they're doing. Because, like I said, America wants to appear righteous in what it's doing because Iran is such a threat, and they're so scary and they're monstrous and savages, and all this stuff. Right? They're unhinged because they have an apocalyptic view of the future. Bro, it's supposed to be the same as yours then. But like I said, it don't seem to compute with you Christians, man. But yeah, so he's coming to judge and make war, right? It says verse 12, his eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, right? Which represents him taking down the nations, right? Taking power and authority away from them, right? By destroying them and crippling them and putting them to slavery, right? So he had many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name was called the Word of God. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean, right? It represents the angels that are going to, appear with Yahushua in their chariots. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he shall smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. And he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and the wrath of the Almighty power. Right? So, yeah, how is this not apocalyptic in your use of the word? You know what I mean? Yahushua is not coming to do, hand out flowers. Like, as we say, he's coming to wage war and destroy people, man, and destroy nations. Right? Now, you might, that people would say that's a pessimistic view of the future. Yeah, sure, whatever. But it's the truth. Right? And we're not, it's not pessimistic to us. Like I said, that's all good news to us, man. Because we can actually have a world we can actually walk around in without seeing all kinds of abominations going on. Walk around, this place not being, confused with lies all the damn fucking time. We're actually going to have some righteous order in the world. So, we want to see the world burn, man. We want to see the wicked, put to bed, if you catch my drift, right? So, verse 16, and he have on his vesture and on his fire a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great God, that ye may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and of them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army, right? So, after America has been destroyed by thermonuclear destruction, right, the world's going to be shaken up, right? Because you're going to see Yahushua and the angels over America burning the crap out of it, right? And so they're going to confront the Lord and the angels, okay, with whatever militaries and these nations have left, right, to confront the Lord to do mortal combat, except for the angels, they're not mortal, right? So you're a bit of a disadvantage here, right? And so you're just gonna get blazed, right? You're just gonna get blazed, right? Verse 20, and the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, okay, which is the Vatican Church, with which he deceived them that received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone, okay, which is going to be the land of America, right? It says the remnant was slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, which sword proceeded out of his mouth, and all the fowls, all the birdies, all the fowls were filled with their flesh. All right, so I don't know what book these guys are reading. My belief is that they don't read at all, right? But they don't believe in the scriptures. That's just pinpoint period, man. You can't accuse these men of being believing in an apocalyptic future when you're supposed to believe in the same thing in our own. I'm not going to use the word our book, right? Because it's not yours. It's not these Edomites' book, really, right? But you claim to be Christians. You're meant to know it, right? So I'm just going to the Bible you're meant to believe in speaks about the same thing, right? But you're trying to push it like it doesn't mention nothing about nothing going down. America has to be destroyed, man. Babylon the Great has to be destroyed, right? So you better you better figure it out. You better understand it, man. Hey, there's only one Babylon the Great on the planet. Who is it? Right? All signs point to America, right? And it's irrefutable. Because the pride levels, everything in prophecy points to you. The pride levels off the chart. Okay, you all this boasting, we're the richest, we're the strongest. That's Babylon the Great. Then Trump will tell you every fucking day. We have the strongest military by far. We're the richest by far. America's the greatest nation on the planet. Like, bro, if you're not Babylon the Great, then who the fuck is it? when you're the one that looks down upon everybody else because of how great you are. Bro, America's done. All right. And that's all I got to say. All right, so I'm going to end it there, man. All praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Rachach. Again, double honors unto the elders, the apostles of GMS, and shalom out there to the hopeful elect out there teaching his truth in all sincerity, man. Until next time, say shalom.